I'm still aggravated. Trying to be understanding, but I'm just getting more aggravated over this. And we kind of need to talk about this even more.
We better try. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what is going on, guys? I'm really trying to, it's been a rough day. Totally been a rough day regarding the Philadelphia Eagles and losing HaasonReddick. Okay, I want to kind of go over the trade. I want to go over why it makes sense, why it doesn't make sense. Might go on a little bit of a rant. We'll see. Try to make Eagles understand why this could be a positive thing, but at the end of the day, it definitely is a weakened. It definitely weakened us in a lot of ways. Okay. So the report comes out, going in almost into April now. Weeks of this going on. Okay, the Eagles trade HaasonReddick, to the New York Jets for a 2026 third-round conditional that could turn to a second-round pick. Okay, for what HaasonReddick needs to do with the Jets to make that turn to a second-round pick in 26, as he has to play over 67% of the snaps, and he has to get 10 or more sacks this season, for that third rounder in 26 to turn into a second rounder. That is it. That is your deal. Nothing in return that really helps us even this year. Couldn't even get a pick for this year. Okay? I told you guys that if Reddick was traded, that it was going to change what we do going forward. I think the draft is completely on a rehaul right now. Howie Roseman, there's got to be something behind this. Okay, number one, the Eagles wanted a second-round pick for HaasonReddick that they weren't going to get. After seeing L'Jarius Sneed get a 25 third-rounder, Brian Burns getting a second-rounder and then some, trading for him, there was no way the Eagles were getting that second-round pick. And I think the Eagles were holding on so much to getting that second-rounder. There just wasn't any value out there for Reddick. The league doesn't value him in trade compensation. Okay? The New York Jets have a rotation going on. They get rid of Bryce Huff to the where he gets to the Philadelphia Eagles. Why didn't the Jets hold on to Bryce Huff? Because they don't think he's worth $17 million a year. That's why they're going after Reddick and paying him more money, because he's late in his career, and he's got the numbers and the statistics to prove that they could pay him more than $17 million. I don't know what the number is. I don't know if this is really on Howie Roseman, because this has gone on for weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, we knew something was happening, but I think Reddick has not wanted to budge from his price. And the Eagles were sitting, and they were waiting, and they were sitting. And after hearing Jeffrey Lurie literally a couple days ago say that, it's going to handle itself in a good way, the Eagles, I guess, just pulled the trigger. Because who knows? HaasonReddick could have just said, hey, I'm not going back to the Eagles. Told his agent, I'm not going back to the Eagles. They're not meeting me at the price I want. So it looks like HaasonReddick has held on to that price that he's wanted. I mean, he couldn't even meet the Eagles halfway. The Eagles would have had to pay HaasonReddick over $17 million a year. I didn't want to pay HaasonReddick. As much as I do want him back and wanted him back, I didn't want to hold him at $25+ million a year. If that's even the number. It might not even be that number. It might be 21, 22 million. It might be maybe a little bit less than 25. But he could have gotten his full deal with the New York Jets. Okay? There's only a few things where this really doesn't make any sense, because this changes your draft going forward. Okay, so everyone that thinks they're getting a linebacker or they're getting a cornerback, especially in the first round, is most likely is not going to happen. Okay, now this deal in general going forward, is the Jets are taking over the $14.5 million that is owed to HaasonReddick. The Eagles only have to pay the $1 million for that roster bonus, which is nothing. The Eagles will probably save up $11 to $14 million in cap space with this move. We'll see what the numbers look like, but you're not even getting a pick for this year. So, man, it just seemed like there was no value. Okay, this is on HaasonReddick at the end of the day. Okay, because really, the Eagles had leverage in this. But if Reddick didn't want to come back, and if the Eagles made Reddick come back and he wanted to sit out, or all Reddick would have to do by training camp is to sit out and threaten the Eagles, say, hey, I'm holding out and I'm not coming back until I get this big deal. Okay. And if that happened, the Eagles would have to trade him. The Eagles would have no choice but to trade him. And by that time, they probably wouldn't even got the picks that they got. I mean, they couldn't even get seriously. I mean, a third round conditional for not even a third round conditional for this year. A third round conditional going into at least for 25, you're going to get a draft pick. You're not getting a draft pick till 2026. 26. 2 years we have to wait for that draft pick. You know, the Eagles can obviously use the draft pick next year, you know, to maybe, you know, trade for a player. They can take some picks out of 26 if they want, because we'll have that pick by the end of this year, plus comp picks. But still, that's 26. And the value there, you know, Reddick went up to the Eagles and said, hey, I'm asking permission to go out there, find my value, see what the numbers out there. I'll come back and see if we could work something out. The Eagles said, yeah, sure, fine. He went out there. We've heard the Cardinals, we've heard the Falcons, and now the New York Jets, Joe Douglas and Howie Roseman. They have a good relationship. We pretty much took Bryce Young. So you know what I mean? So sorry, Bryce Huff, not Bryce Young, Bryce Huff. They didn't want to pay Bryce Huff because he's a rotational guy. What makes you think as of right now that this makes you comfortable? I understand both sides to it, because the Eagles want to pay Devontae Smith. Okay, who knows? They might get Justin Simmons. Who knows what happens? But you can't just make this move and not have a backup plan. If you just get rid of Reddick and just say whatever, now you got to ask yourself as a fan, like, does Howie Roseman even want to contend at this point? Or did Reddick just say, I'm not coming back, like, trade me or I'm going to hold out? I mean, we don't know the information. Eagle fans are flipping out right now because they're, now it's, Reddick didn't do anything at the end of last year. He's overrated. All the people that are now saying that. Reddick was a fourth quarter closer. Okay. He was Mariano Rivera. Okay. When it comes to the top closer in the league. Okay. How many games this year? Fourth quarter, game on the line. Reddick getting sacks, getting pressures, being disruptive. He's done it. You know what I mean? And he's a very streaky player, because there'll be 1 month where he gets 0 sacks, and there'll be another month where he'll have 6 or 7. That's just the type of player he is. Okay? But for Howie Roseman just to pull this and like, now it's just like, there's nobody else out there to replace Reddick's production. You're not going to get that. Eagle fans have valued Reddick over what the league has valued him over. And that's perfectly fine. I feel like he's got way too much value. I feel like the Eagles got a little bit fleeced in this situation. But it really depends what they do after this. I would have been more comfortable, guys. It wouldn't have been no problem. Okay? If Nolan Smith at least did something last year, if he had 6 to 10 sacks, if he somewhat showed us something. He was hurt a couple times. I blame the coaching staff for not really giving him more reps, because Derek Barnett was taking his reps. They gave him reps at the end of the year pretty much, where it really didn't even matter at this point, because every position was flawed. Coaching staff couldn't coach. Play calling was god-awful. You switched defensive coordinators. Became a total mess. Mentally, nobody was there. Don't even tell me HaasonReddick didn't do nothing at the end of last year, because let me tell you something. What defensive lineman did anything at the end of last year? Okay? Nobody. Maybe Fletcher Cox in the rotation played a little bit better. Maybe Maro Ojomo played a little tiny bit better. Nobody else played good. Jordan Davis fell off. Jalen Carter fell off. This coaching staff failed this roster, failed this team. And people just want to single out HaasonReddick for the end of last year. Whoop-de-doo. You know how many players did not pan out at the end of last year. The whole defense did nothing last year. Mentally, they were done. No sense of urgency. No fight. No resiliency. Okay? That's my problem. Nolan Smith. If he worked out, Sure. Now he's coming off of a little bit of shoulder surgery he had this offseason. The rumors are that Vic Fangio is going to give Nolan Smith a workload, especially this training camp coming up, which we'll talk about later on in this video. Okay? And that's it. I mean, what's your backup plan? Okay? This changes the draft now. I mean, does it not? I mean, now you really have to go into the draft. And, I mean, you're kind of giving up to yourself, to the league, that you need an edge rusher now. Because there's no way Josh Sweat is going to pan out whatever production. There's no way that Brandon Graham is going to do it on a rotation. And who knows if we're going to get that second-round pick from the Jets. Because he's got to get 10-plus sacks this year, play over 67% of the snaps, and the Jets have a very heavy rotation. He might get his 10 sacks, but will he have 67% of the snaps this year? I hope so, to at least get that pick if we can get it. But that's 2 years down the road. Nothing to help us out this year. So where do you go in this draft? They brought in Chop Robinson on pre-draft visit. They brought in Latsu on pre-draft visit. Okay? You got Jaden Verse out there. You got Dallas Turner. That would probably be the best fit for this defense because he's more of a hybrid end/outside off coverage linebacker at times. So I guess it would make more sense. But as I've been saying, guys, for weeks, is that if this trade actually went down, which I didn't expect it to at all, I really didn't. It was almost April. I mean, a couple days away, a day away from April. And I'm sitting here like, why would this trade happen now? Why is this taking so long? It's either Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman wasn't getting the right compensation. And HaasonReddick hasn't gone off the number he's wanted. So it's a big loss for this defense. I'm trying to figure out how this could turn positive. And yes, you could draft another guy. So do you want to pay HaasonReddick $25+ million? That's what I asked myself. People are like, well, why'd you want to keep him? You don't want to pay all that. I said, no, I don't. If he wants 25+, just keep him for the year. Restructure his deal. Give him a lot of guaranteed money. Let him make a nice big fat paycheck in 1 year. And let him go on his way after this year. But this is a Super Bowl year this year. And you're literally giving away your best premier pass rusher to the fucking New York Jets that are almost an NFL purgatory because the Jets are building for the short term. They're not building for the long term. They're trying to pull what Brady did at Tampa Bay for a couple years. And they already wasted 1 year with Aaron Rodgers even not being there after 12 plays. In the first game last season. The Jets are just cursed. Okay? I live in New York. I'm around Jet fans all the time. They're cursed and excited. But at the end of the day, they're going to be cursed. Okay? That's what I got to say about the situation. Because you get away a premier pass rusher like that. And now, what is the backup plan? There's no way you're going to literally sit there and tell me and Howie Roseman's just going to be like, nah, we're good. We're talking about cornerback. We're talking about let me tell you something. If they draft offensive line, I might be pissed off because now this really changed everything. I feel like they can't even go. And as much as I don't think they would go offensive line in the first round because I feel like, Jeff Stoutland is a good enough coach to see you don't want to draft a guy that's going to redshirt. Okay, I get it. Best talent available on the board. And I feel like the Eagles are going to move up in this draft to get a premier pass rusher. I hope it's not, I really hope it's not Chop Robinson. I really hope not. I hope it's Jaden Verse. The best one for this scheme, like I said, Dallas Turner, I think, is the best for the scheme. Dallas Turner to Latsu. I think both of those guys are probably the top two right now. Jaden Verse coming in, depending on where you want to put them. Okay? It's really sad. It's a real shitty day because this was just out of nowhere. Totally out of nowhere. And now I don't know. They put themselves in the corner now. Now this doesn't now Eagle fans are just flipping out. Now they're saying this is a 6-win team. There's just people going far out the left field, far out the deep end. They say the Eagles HaasonReddick is not the whole defense. Okay, the Eagles made a lot of moves and an added move to keep Reddick in Philadelphia. And honestly, I wasn't looking for a 2-year extension. I wasn't looking for a 3-year extension. I was looking for at least a restructure for this year. Just play with us for the year, try to compete for a Super Bowl, restructure your contract, get a lot of guaranteed money coming your way up front, take a nice big fat paycheck up front, and just be happy and play out the year, and we'll let him go. But that didn't happen. The market has been god awful when it comes to trade compensation for not only Reddick, but a lot of players. I mean, a 26th third round conditional. I mean, God, you couldn't even get a 26th second round pick at least. Holy damn. Seriously. You couldn't even get that in a couple years. And Howie Roseman definitely added the conditional and what, Reddick had to do and to see if this was going to be fair on both sides. So I get it. But this is a big hole now. Not only Nolan Smith, not only drafting one of these premier pass rushers that, who knows? They could draft a premier guy. Like, guys, I'm being realistically serious. They could draft a premier guy and he could get double-digit sacks. Or who knows? Like, you never know what can happen. We could be saying, wow, like Howie Roseman looks even better now. You never know. But Bryce Huff, unfortunately, right now, like, he's not HaasonReddick. He's not going to get you double-digit sacks this year. He might not. He might not. I don't know. We'll see. Bryce Huff, that contract for $17 million a year will look really good next year at the end of next season when he really starts to. I think Bryce Huff is a fantastic player. I think he's got a lot to prove. Okay, and that man can get after the quarterback. Okay, but that other side is really weak right now. I understand Eagle fans. I understand like to pay Reddick that much money to be more in coverage this year than he ever has been, because he would have been in a lot of coverage this year where he's not getting his statistics as much. Is it worth paying him that? I don't know. They might, at this point, you go get Julian Blackmon, you go get Justin Simmons, you go get, I don't know. You cover that safety spot. You go, you get out, Isaiah Simmons. I don't know, whoever at this point on the back end. And you go into this draft and you just close your eyes and hope to God. Well, not them. They gotta be on point. We already know whatever we get is going to be a downgrade. But if you can get a premier pass rusher, move up in this draft and have a guy for 5 years produce, and it's going to be, it's a lot. You're going to have one side, you're going to have a guy that's very new to this team that's getting, Bryce Huff has only had 43% of the snaps. He didn't play the whole season. He was a rotational guy that just was in a real good situation, had double-digit sacks for 1 year. That's it. It doesn't cover anything. It doesn't fix anything. So if Nolan Smith worked out and they had Bryce Huff, coming in, I would feel more comfortable if Nolan Smith produced last year, but he didn't. So now taking away Reddick, I don't care if Sweat's on the other side. Sweat is not. I don't know. Sweat had his worst year last year of his career in Philadelphia this past year. Okay. He didn't have a sack since week 9. The coaching hopefully will be the biggest opponent for us that we have to stop beating ourselves. And we're hoping that these new coordinators will put our players in the right position to win football games. And Vic Fangio is the best man for the job. I don't like the scheme, but he is the best man for the job. So replacing Reddick, so the only positive thing I can say is they can replace Reddick by putting a guy in that spot that is going to be a monster because of the scheme. And everybody around as a whole unit will help that. But it's really tough to let go of Reddick and for a 26th third round conditional. Not even a pick for this year to make me comfortable and say, oh, they made a great move. I said if the Eagles trade Reddick, the draft is going to change, and I think it's going to. So it's looking like what's our weakest spot right now, since they really, they don't have a good enough edge. What's the rotation on the other side? What's the rotation? You got to balance it out now. You have Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham. That's it. Who else do you have? You have Nolan Smith, that outside linebacker this year. Who else do you have? So they got to go out and get an athletic off-ball linebacker that could play on the line and will be in coverage as well. And I think there are a couple guys out there. But the Eagles are going to have to move up. Chop Robinson for me is not going to work out. And anything other than Chop, I'm fine. I just don't trust Chop Robinson, his production last year. And they already had him in for a pre-draft visit. But Latu has been in for a pre-draft visit. Nobody else so far. We still have a little bit more time. So, yeah, you're not just going to sign an undrafted free agent. I mean, there's nobody left in free agency nobody else is going to produce as much as Reddick has. Okay, Yank Ngakwe's out there. He's 30 years old. He's pretty productive, but not as much as you're getting from Reddick. Whether you draft somebody, he's not going to be as productive. But like I said, we might be surprised if we draft a premier edge rusher and they're like, wow, like, look at us. Like, wow, we made a really good move. Getting rid of Reddick was a good move. We don't get that pick for a couple years, but man, this guy is killing it this season. We might be saying that down the line. But they're putting a lot of faith into the young core. That's the conclusion to all this. They're putting a lot of faith into the young core. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, they're putting a lot of faith into Nolan Smith going into this season, Nakobe Dean coming back from injury. They're putting a lot of faith into the young guys this year. And I really hope that Vic Fangio works these guys out and does a good job as a defensive coordinator. And I hope guys can stay healthy. And I hope Bryce Huff has a monster season. It's really scary. They must have a lot of faith in Nolan Smith, a lot of faith in Bryce Huff, between off-ball linebacker and on that line as well. So we got to be really careful here. But this made me very uncomfortable. It really did, because it was out of nowhere. And this has been going on for weeks. So who is more to blame? We might hear news down the road who's more of the blame right now. But, it's shitty. It sucks. I'm not going to crap on HaasonReddick because he deserves more money. But we just weren't in the position to do it, unfortunately. And if Reddick's number just wasn't dropping enough for the Eagles, that's just where it was going to go, So he deserves all he gets. I wish him luck as a New York Jet. I hope he kills it. Obviously, not just for the draft pick, but I hope I hope they don't, I hope he's used correctly, and I hope he does have, in a more aggressive system. He will play a lot better. We have to roll with the punches right now. This doesn't end the season. This doesn't, people need to relax and stop thinking that the season's over and we're only a 6-win team. I mean, we have an entire offense we haven't even unleashed yet with a receiver as needed right now. Okay. There's so much to be excited for. This is just a bump in the road. This is just one of the hard decisions. I mean, there's people out there saying, this is as bad as, this is one of the worst moves from Howie. He's going to be remembered by letting go of Deshaun Jackson and Nick Foles. And I mean, seriously, like, people need to relax. People need to stop. Like, I get it. And if the people think he sucks so bad, why are people so pissed off? If people think he's overrated, why are people pissed off? So, and that wasn't Howie. It was Chip Kelly did all those moves anyway, because people were comparing Howie. Everyone thinking Howie was making those moves or something. I don't know. So it's really tiring. It's a crappy day, and that's what happened. So that's the news on HaasonReddick. And I want to go one more thing really quick. I just wanted to kind of I did stream the HaasonReddick news. I just kind of want to do a video on it, so people could just hear this conversation about it. So like I said, going to the draft, I think you have no choice now, but this draft does change in a lot of ways. Now, for the Philadelphia Eagles, the offseason program is going to be interesting. Now, it looks like the offseason program is definitely going to change this year. Looks like the Eagles are bringing back minicamp, finally. We need these practices to be more demanding and more tough. And from what we heard from Javon Hargrave, between what he went through with Philadelphia and how the practices were relaxing and more demand from the 49ers practices, and hearing Sidney Brown talk about, why these practices and how no wonder we look bad in games, going from practice to games on Sunday. It really showed last year. We need more chemistry. And, I understand that Nick probably didn't want to play these guys because even coming off the Super Bowl in 22, they didn't have minicamp just because they're like one of 3 teams that don't do minicamp. But now it's coming back. You're not going to be going 100% in minicamp and full pads, and you're not going crazy. You just want to get the guys together. You want to get them in the building. You want them to run some routes, do some things, get into some formations. Let these guys get together. Let this thing start rolling a little bit. I think the Eagles needed minicamp back. I was hoping that this was going to happen, and now it is going to happen. So April 15th, we will have it back. So we'll have some little short practices we'll be able to see really soon with all of that. And that's pretty much it. So let me know what you guys think about the HaasonReddick trade. Do you agree, not agree? Are you happy? Are you sad? Do you think the Eagles can replace him? Or do you think the Eagles can replace him in a positive way and say, hey, let's go get a guy that is more of a scheme fit for Fangio's system, because Reddick was probably not going to, from what it sounds like, he wasn't going to work out in Philadelphia as what they were going to put the situation he was going to be in. And I think part of this is they want to do right by HaasonReddick. HaasonReddick did not want to come in Philadelphia, and get paid what he was going to get paid, and the Eagles would not pay him more than $17 million a year, or more than that. Whatever the number was, we're going to find out. I understand that. You got to pay Devontae Smith. He's turning 30. He's turning 30 years old. Reddick's turning 30 years old in September. So to give a guy a big monster extension like that, and we haven't really seen him decline. If he even started to decline just a little bit, I would have said to myself, yeah, just get rid of him. But when he deserves his money, and that's it. That's all I could really say. So we'll talk about more of this throughout the week. We'll see updates, and hopefully we'll get more news on what's going on. But other than that, guys, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day, and we'll be streaming every day as well. Make sure you like the video. It does help out the channel a lot, and thanks for hearing me out. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Shakes what up, fly. Peace out, guys. Peace.